What's up, people? I'm Brandon Williams, and welcome to the 5 Seconds on the Clock podcast. I'm going to start by introducing myself. Like I said, my name is Brandon Williams, and I'm a native of Dayton, Ohio, and I absolutely love sports. I can't emphasize that enough. Besides family, sports was definitely my first love and always has been, and will stay that way. Ever since I can remember, I love sports, and that is pretty much all I watch, listen to, love everything about sports. Not just what happens on the field, the court, the diamond, etc., but what also goes on behind the scenes with their families and stuff like that. My two favorite sports are basketball and football. Those are the sports I'll focus on most throughout this podcast. But we're going to talk about sports in general, and I really just am excited to dive into this. Ohio State football was my first love, and I'm a die-hard Ohio State fan. That will never, ever, ever change. My love for the Buckeyes will never change, no matter what kind of season they're having. Like ever since I've been alive, they've been pretty successful. Always bowl eligible, always going to when it was a BCS bowl. Now the what do they call them? The New Year's Six bowls. Always in the playoffs, and they're prevalent every season. So it's been good for me for as a Buckeye fan. But I'm not just an Ohio State fan. I'm a fan of all Ohio teams. It's been a bit rough for me though outside of Ohio State. I'm a Cincinnati Bengals fan. The Bengals haven't won a playoff game since 5 years before I was born. I was born in 1996. The last time they won a playoff game was in 1991. But nevertheless, I still rock with my team. I love my Bengals. Only an hour away from where I was born here in Dayton, so I still love the Bengals no matter the ups and downs they go through as a franchise and as a team year after year. And staying in Cincinnati, I'm also a Cincinnati Reds fan. Like the Bengals, the Reds also haven't won a playoff game since 1991, 5 years before I was born. But I don't hold it against them. It's just with the Reds and the Bengals, I don't really expect much coming into each season. So if they do have a good season, it's always a surprise and always a bonus. So it's always kind of been pretty tough for me as a Bengals and a Reds fan. I'm also a big fan of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now we've had our ups and downs lately. When LeBron was there, it was always good. The 11 years he was there, he definitely brought a championship to the city of Cleveland and to Northeast Ohio and all of Ohio for major Ohio sports fans like myself. But since he's left, we know both times he's left, the Cavs have had a rough time. I mean, and come on, it's LeBron James. Who wouldn't have a tough time after LeBron leaves their teams? LeBron kind of has a history of leaving teams in disarray after he departs. So it's been rough for my Cavs, but I think we have a bright future. We drafted Colin Sexton last year at the number 8 overall pick, and we just picked Darius Garland out of Vanderbilt with the number 5 pick this year. So I'm optimistic on the future for the Cavs. It'll take some rough seasons in between, but hopefully we can get back to the point where we can make the playoffs and even make some noise once we get in the playoffs. So those are my favorite Ohio sports teams. As far as college basketball, I follow Ohio State, of course, and I also follow University of Dayton. Being from Dayton, I've always, followed UD closely, and I used to always go to UD basketball games with my uncle. So, I have a love for UD. The Flyers have always, been a fun team to watch. Even, when they have up and down seasons, just going to UD Arena and the environment there and the energy is always great. I also follow Syracuse men's basketball, and that's because I just graduated from Syracuse University. I got my master's in broadcast and digital journalism. So go Orange Nation. Now I have a new team to root for, for the rest of my life, being that I am an alum of Syracuse University. So shout out to Newhouse. That is the Newhouse School of Public Communications at Syracuse University, the top communication school in the country. I really learned a lot in my 13 months there. It really helped me develop my skills and helped me kind of get like a feel for what I want to do career wise. And one of the things we talked about a lot there was podcast, and that's one of the reasons I'm inspired to start this podcast. So shout out to Newhouse. I'm also a huge Candace Parker and Pat Summitt fan. Rest her soul, that's the best coach of all time in my eyes. Yes, even over Gino Auriemma from UConn. He's had those dominant teams, those historic win streaks, 4 titles in a row when they had Breonna Stewart. He's been dominant ever since he's been at UConn. But in my mind, Pat Summitt is the best coach of all time. I love women's basketball. I mean, I absolutely love it. My favorite WNBA teams are the LA Sparks, of course, because of the GOAT, Candace Parker. I used to have a huge crush on her back in the day. But she went with Sheldon Williams from Duke, the former Duke star. And I always say she chose the wrong Williams, but it's cool. It's cool. I can live with that, and I moved on now. But my Sparks have a squad this year. Of course, they have Candace. They added they added one of the Agumake sisters. Shania Agumake came over in the all season from the Connecticut Sun. They already have Nneka Agumake, her sister. So now we have that dominant. That's a big three right there in itself. But you can't leave out Chelsea Gray. Chelsea Gray, the guard out of Duke. She's an all-star. She was an all-star this year. I think this is her second straight selection. She's really a dog with the ball. You can't leave out players like Raquana Williams, great role player. Great role player. She's a walking bucket. She can put the ball in the basket anyway. That's the same. The same thing goes for Chelsea Gray. She's a ball handler. She's dynamic. She can set up the offense and get her own bucket as well. But we have Elena Beard on the team. She's nice. She's a two-time Defensive Player of the Year. She always does her thing on that side of the ball. And they drafted Kalani Brown, the number 7 pick this year. I think she has a bright future. And I think playing with the Agumake sisters and Candace is really going to help her in her development in her career. I also like the Las Vegas Aces, though. Absolutely love Liz Cambage. I just love her personality. And I love how she's so open about, things that affect her. Like mental health is a serious issue, and they're addressing it in the NBA now. Kevin Love, DeMar DeRozan, guys like that have came out and talked about depression and mental health, and it's a very, very important issue. And I think we should pay attention to that on the women's side as well. And Liz Cambage is one of those people who just is open about it and is willing to say whatever. And I also like A'ja Wilson. She's an AKA just like my girlfriend, so shout out to them. But she's a great player on the court, former number 1 overall pick. And the Aces just have a squad. They have a bright future. They have Kayla McBride. She's a bucket. Dearica Hamby, she's a handful on, she just comes in, plays a role, both sides of the ball. She's really one of those, hustle players, somebody you really want on your team in any situation. I follow soccer as well. I like Atlanta United. Joseph Martinez is a threat to score. As soon as he steps on the pitch, he can put the ball in the back of the net. They are the reigning MLS. He is the reigning MLS MVP, and Atlanta United are the defending MLS Cup champs. So let's see if they can repeat this year. They're currently first place in the Eastern Conference. Let's see if they can keep that up. But I think they can do it. I think I see a repeat in their future. I will be going to a career expo in Atlanta at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, so I'm looking forward to that. There will be representatives from multiple organizations, including Atlanta United, so I'm excited for that, to get to talk to those people and, see if I can take my career to the next level, maybe working for a team like Atlanta United. I'm also a huge Lionel Messi fan. Love Messi, Barcelona. That's my favorite team on the, the European level. Messi, he's just a great scorer. He's always been that, and he's kind of, shorter guy, so I feel like I can, relate to him more being a shorter guy myself. But he's always been so dominant out there on the pitch, and his legacy is really cemented. He hasn't had as much success on the international level with, with Argentina, but still that might hurt his legacy a little bit, but you can't discount Messi and say oh, he isn't great. Messi has always been one of the best players in the world ever since he was a teenager, really. So that's a little bit about me. I'm excited to finally start this podcast. I'm looking forward to feedback from all the listeners. And soon we'll have viewers because I'm going to do a YouTube page. I'm going to start a YouTube page, and I'm going to record the podcast so you'll be able to hear and see the podcast. I misplaced my podcast equipment because like I said, I graduated from Syracuse this summer, and I'm coming back home. And so, I had a bunch of stuff when I was moving, so I couldn't find my podcast equipment, but I finally located it. So I finally get to record this podcast. So we'll be having that YouTube channel going up pretty soon. So I want you guys to engage with that and subscribe. I'll let you know when that is up. But like I said, I'm not just going to talk about what happens on the field. I'll also talk about what athletes are doing outside of the sport, like community involvement, achievement, contracts, fashion, all that. We're going to talk about all that, okay? We're going to get into all that pretty soon. But I'm going to give you a little intro into my next episode. This is just a little preview to the first episode of the 5 Seconds on the Clock podcast. So the first episode will be a college football preview. Now, I know the season started last week, when Florida took on Miami down in Orlando. They called that week 0. I really don't get it, but, it is what it is. And I wanted to have the podcast out before that game so it could be like a true preview of the season before any games were played. But like I said, I misplaced my podcast equipment. So, for the upcoming season, we all know who the favorites are. Of course, it's Bama and Clemson, and for good reason. They've met in the playoffs for the past 4 or 5 years, and whoever wins the match between them goes on to win the national championship. So we'll see how that goes. There's only been 3 winners in the 5 years of the national championship, the college football playoff, I should say. It's been Ohio State. They won their inaugural college football playoff, and then ever since then, it's either been Bama or Clemson. So, of course, they're the favorites, and they're returning a lot of players. But with that being said, you can't count out other teams like Georgia, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and even teams who are on the cusp of making it to the next level, like LSU, Michigan, or the team up north, as I call them, because of course I'm a Buckeye fan. So Buckeye fans, you know the drill. Also going to talk about Heisman Watch, best jerseys in college football. I'm interested to see what you guys think about that, because it's a lot of different opinions. Whether you guys like the vintage looks and the old school plain and simple looks, or if you like the flashy, multiple colorways, different designs, stuff like that. So I'm interested to see how you guys feel. But yeah, that's all coming up in the first episode of the 5 Seconds on the Clock podcast. I'm excited to start this podcast, to share my opinions, and most importantly, to engage other sports fans and lovers. So tune in, and I look forward to hearing from you guys very soon.